She hadn't spoken a single word in 10 years, until the day a boy the neighborhood overlooked sat beside her under the old oak tree. What happened next shook the whole community. If you love emotional, unforgettable stories, make sure you subscribe to Black Inside 2.0, where every story speaks straight to the heart. The Willow Crest community was known for two things: perfect lawns and perfect silence. Everything was regulated, hedges trimmed to regulation height, porch decor reviewed monthly by the board, and even laughter seemed to come with guidelines. Families who lived here enjoyed structure and peace, and the WA made sure of it. But no one embodied silence more than the girl who lived in the biggest house on Hawthorne Lane. The community simply called her the Silent Daughter. She was gentle, graceful, always smiling politely but never speaking. At school events she sat quietly, at WA picnics she helped arrange flowers but never said a single word. Her name was Elara, and for 10 years she hadn't spoken. Not one syllable. People whispered, of course. Rumors bloomed like weeds. Some said she suffered a childhood shock, others claimed she chose silence. But the only person who knew the truth was her father, a reserved man who carried his worries like invisible stones. The community treated Elara delicately, like she might vanish if handled the wrong way. Then one summer, everything changed. The new family on Sycamore Street. Moving into Willow Crest was no easy task. The WA had a long list of expectations. Most families needed weeks to settle in, but the family who arrived that breezy June morning didn't seem intimidated by any of it. They came with a modest truck and warm smiles. Among them was Jayden, a bright-faced, energetic teenager who never stopped asking questions. He was friendly with everyone, neighbors, pets, and even the mailman. Willow Crest, with its trim perfection, felt like a new world to him, and he embraced it with curiosity rather than fear. Jayden came from a simpler neighborhood. No gates, no strict rules, definitely no WA, but his mother wanted a safer place, a peaceful environment, and a chance for him to attend a school with more opportunities. And so, here they were. From the moment he stepped onto Sycamore Street, Jayden noticed how quiet the community was. Too quiet. Do people even talk out here? He joked to himself, but when he saw the large garden near the center of Willow Crest, a place filled with blooming roses and benches shaded by a grand oak tree, he knew he would spend a lot of time there. He had no idea his life was about to intertwine with someone who hadn't spoken in a decade. The first encounter, it happened on a golden afternoon. Jayden had been exploring, wandering down the winding paths between the manicured hedges, when he spotted someone sitting beneath the great oak tree. A girl in a flowing red dress. She wasn't reading or listening to music. She simply sat there, watching sunlight flicker through the leaves. Something about her peaceful presence drew him closer. He didn't want to startle her, so he approached softly. When she turned her head, he saw a gentle expression, calm, yet distant. "Hey," he said with a warm smile. "Mind if I sit?" She blinked, slightly surprised, but nodded. Jayden lowered himself onto the grass, leaning his back against the tree trunk. "I'm Jayden, my family just moved in. Still trying to figure out the whole rulebook of this place." She let out a soft laugh, silent but clear in her eyes. "And you are?" She pressed her hand lightly against her chest, signaling herself, and then she traced a small E on the grass with her finger. "Elara," Jayden guessed. She nodded again. "That's a beautiful name," he said. She smiled, a real one this time, warm and bright. Something about Jayden's easygoing nature seemed to loosen the invisible ties holding her still. Jayden kept talking, not too much, not too little, just enough to fill the silence without overpowering it. Elara listened as though every word painted a new color in her world. When her father appeared in the distance, his expression unreadable, Elara gave Jayden a tiny wave before standing and walking to him. Jayden watched them leave, curiosity blooming. Why doesn't she speak? But Jayden wasn't one to judge or pry. He just hoped she'd be in the garden again. The WA notices. A week passed, and the WA did what it always did, try to control everything. Jayden's family received their first notice. Trash bins must be placed exactly 18 inches away from the curb. Jayden laughed at it. His mother did not. But the notice wasn't what mattered. What mattered was that Elara left a small white flower on their porch later that day. No note, just the flower. Jayden saw her from the window, smiling shyly before hurrying away. He placed the flower carefully inside a book, preserving it. Silent conversations. Over the next few weeks, Jayden and Elara met under the oak tree almost every afternoon. Jayden talked about school, sports, his dreams, the neighborhoods he'd lived in. Elara communicated with gestures, gentle movements, drawn shapes, occasional written words in a small notebook she carried. Their connection grew like roots beneath the grass, quiet yet unbreakable. One day, Jayden tried something different. He wrote on a page of Elara's notebook, "If you could speak, what would you say first?" She froze, her eyes softened, she tapped the page gently, then wrote 2 words underneath. "Thank you." Jayden felt something warm settle in his chest. "For what?" he asked softly. She looked at him, the same look she had the first day, but deeper now. A look that said, "You made my world feel safe again." Whispers of the past. Not everyone in Willow Crest approved. Some neighbors worried about their growing closeness. Elara was from one of the wealthiest households. Jayden was from a modest home. Mrs. Patterson, the WA president, was the loudest of them all. "I simply think the girl should spend time with children, in her own circle," she announced during a board meeting. Jayden overheard parts of it one evening while walking home. The sting was sharp but familiar. Judgment wasn't new to him. But Elara, she didn't care about circles or opinions. She continued meeting Jayden every day. It wasn't long before her father noticed the change in his daughter. Her smiles, her eagerness to go outside, her renewed spark. He had questions, but he wasn't unkind. He merely observed from afar, wondering what this boy had brought into his daughter's life. Then one evening, Elara's father approached Jayden as he was leaving the garden. "Thank you," he said softly. Jayden blinked. "For what, sir?" "For giving my daughter something I haven't seen in a long time, joy." Jayden nodded respectfully, though he didn't fully understand the weight behind the words. Not yet. The night everything changed. It was early autumn when Jayden found Elara under the oak tree, trembling slightly. She clutched her notebook tightly, and her hands shook as she wrote. Jayden sat beside her immediately. "Elara, what happened?" she wrote slowly, tears forming in her eyes. "I want to talk, but I'm scared." Jayden's heart tightened. "You don't ever have to force yourself," he said gently. "Not for me, not for anyone." She shook her head, pressing a hand over her heart. She wrote again, "I want to try, with you." Jayden took her hand, not tightly, just enough to let her know he was there. That she wasn't alone. "Elara, whenever you're ready, I'll listen." The wind rustled the leaves. The golden sunset painted her features softly. She opened her mouth, just slightly, but no sound came. Still, she tried. Her chest rose with effort, her lips forming shapes that had been forgotten. A whisper escaped, barely a breath, but it was the first sound she had made in 10 years. Jayden felt tears sting his eyes, not from sadness but from witnessing courage. "You did it," he murmured. "I'm proud of you." She leaned against him, tired but relieved, knowing that the silence she'd lived with for a decade had finally begun to crack. The rumor storm. News traveled fast in Willow Crest. Some neighbors were amazed, others were less welcoming. Mrs. Patterson, of course, was furious. What business does he have encouraging her like that? She muttered, "The girl needs professional guidance, not a distraction." But Elara didn't care what anyone thought. She felt lighter than she had in years. And for the first time, she began to seek Jayden out, not just in the garden, but in the community pathways, the park, and even the local library. Their silent conversations became treasured moments. Sometimes she would whisper a single word. Sometimes she would simply hold his hand. It didn't matter. Every small step felt monumental. A heart finally speaks. The day that changed everything arrived unexpectedly. There was a community event, music, lanterns, food, and families gathered under warm lights. Elara rarely attended these events, but that night she walked in confidently, her father beside her. And Jayden was already there. When she saw him, she moved across the lawn with a steadiness that surprised everyone. He smiled. "Hey, Elara," she swallowed, breathing carefully. And then, with trembling determination, she whispered, "Hi, Jayden," not in her notebook, not mouthed silently, but spoken. The closest neighbors froze. Her father covered his mouth, tears welling. Jayden stared at her, stunned but overjoyed. You said my name," he whispered. She nodded, eyes shining with emotion. Jayden didn't rush forward or make a scene. He simply placed his hand over his heart, letting her know how much it meant. It was the most beautiful moment Willow Crest had witnessed in years. The heart of the matter. After that night, things changed, not instantly but steadily. Elara's voice returned slowly, like a song relearned note by note. She spoke more with her father. She whispered small sentences to Jayden. She even greeted neighbors with tiny, careful words. Her courage inspired the community. Even Mrs. Patterson softened, though she'd never admit it out loud. Jayden and Elara spent the autumn and winter growing closer, learning each other in ways that didn't need grand gestures. Their bond was built on trust, patience, and quiet devotion. One winter afternoon, sitting under the oak tree wrapped in scarves, Elara spoke a full sentence to him for the first time. "Thank you for hearing me even when I couldn't speak." Jayden took her hand, warmth spreading through him despite the cold. "You were never silent, Elara. You just needed someone to listen differently." She smiled, a smile that held gratitude, affection, and something deeper. Something like love, the promise of spring. As the seasons turned, so did the rhythm of their lives. Spring arrived, and with it came blossoms, new leaves, and fresh beginnings. Under the oak tree, their oak tree, Jayden placed a small wooden box beside her. Inside was a simple charm shaped like a tiny leaf. "For you," he said softly, "a reminder of where your voice first came back." She held it gently, her eyes misting. And then she whispered, "I'm glad you moved here, even with all the rules." Jayden laughed. "Yeah, I think Willow Crest needed a little shaking up." She leaned her head against his shoulder. The garden was quiet around them, but not the kind of silence that trapped her. This silence was peaceful, safe, full of promise, and as the sun filtered through the branches, they sat together, two souls who met in the most unlikely place, yet changed each other's lives more than either could have imagined. The voice that changed Willow Crest. Elara never became loud, she didn't need to. Her voice returned gently, piece by piece. The community learned from her. People smiled more, they judged less, they listened deeper. Jayden and Elara continued to meet under the oak tree, their bond growing stronger with every shared moment. And for the first time in a decade, the Willow Crest community felt alive again, not from rules or regulations but from compassion. From hope, from the simple, beautiful truth that sometimes, one person's kindness can unlock another person's world.